Well, it looks like we're live. I just got the notification.
We have seen so much activity now, billions and billions of dollars of transactions across RippleNet, our network for payments.
You know, a lot of the XRP holders that I've spoken to are upset about the personal aspect of this claim too, and that the SEC says
welcome everyone.
Millions of dollars.
While everyone comes in, we're just going to play the Brad Garlinghouse clip.
Ripple's progress.
Oh wait, I didn't even.
Brad, how do you respond to those allegations? Yeah. Could you have been more transparent? It's okay to diversify holdings into other things. You just need to be more transparent.
Welcome, Don.
You know, I'm really looking forward to the facts coming out in the court case. You know, this is something I haven't commented on publicly because the wheels of justice kind of move slowly, and I think it's important that we get the facts out. We've heard one side of the story from the SEC. In fact, I think as the facts come out, what we'll find is that Ripple and I have been as more transparent than anyone else in the crypto industry about our activity, about what we're doing. And so, again, I find a certain irony that the SEC would bring a lawsuit against us, particularly personally, because what they're saying is that not just that we should have known and we've acted in bad faith, when the SEC themselves haven't really said, well, they know for sure that XRP is a security. In their own court filings, they've said that the court will determine that, which of course brings a contradiction that if the court's going to determine that, how could I personally have known that the SEC would view XRP as a security?
So you're saying, I have nothing to hide, Ripple has nothing to hide, effectively bring it on.
Absolutely, Julia. I mean, as you know, and you and I have spoken a number of times, given your expertise in this segment, and Ripple has for years been incredibly transparent with our quarterly markets report about what we're doing with our XRP. And we've really asked the industry as a whole, I mean, if the crypto industry as a whole wants to be mature, I think that level of transparency is needed.
You know, the painful part of this is the lack of clarity, the lack of regulatory clarity that you have now in the United States, even as you're doing things in other countries. Do you think in this period there's a risk that the progress that's being made in places like decentralized finance or a global stablecoin perhaps as a window of opportunity to overtake what you're trying to do with your payment network? Is that a risk, to your point about suppressing certain parts of the market and innovation?
Yeah, I mean, look, you are absolutely right that the lack of clarity and lack of certainty affects the whole industry. And I think that's what Ripple is experiencing, and the SEC filed another lawsuit earlier this week. And so I think here in the United States, the industry has the risk of falling behind. But I don't think, you know, at the end of the day, what Ripple's solving is a cross-border payments problem. And we are working with some of it, and certainly speaking to many central banks around the world about some of the stablecoin initiatives for central bank issued digital currencies. And we actually think that's actually helpful to what Ripple is doing in solving a cross-border payments problem. Ultimately, we saw the Obama administration be clear that XRP is viewed as a currency, and we think we'll actually end up there, hopefully, as a new administration comes into the SEC.
Wow. So he basically just said, so Gensler is going to see this as a security, as a currency. I think this is very interesting with his comments there. And he says, bring it on. So let me get back over to the screen. Hang on. All right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, well, here's what I think could be possibly happening. I'm going to throw a little speculation. Now, Yoshi Katao is now off the board, and they put Admin Trademan there. Now that I think for multiple reasons going on here. Remember, he's the CEO of Ripple Asia, and he's also the CEO of BRD, which is behind Blocksets. And I'm working on a video for that's going to come out, because that's the infrastructure that's literally going to be turnkey for the financial institutions. And there's some big partners. They just redid their website and their videos, and they said tens of billions already flowing through the infrastructure on the back end, which is all the node hosting, all the data, and it's a single API and wallet as a service. So that any of these institutions want to build a wallet, it's just boop, right there, plug and play, white label, and they don't got to build anything. And that's the way the money's going to flow into this market. Because everyone's like, well, one of the institutions is going to come in. Well, they're not going to just be able to use Coinbase to do what they got to do. That's just not going to work. They're going to need to really to build their own solutions for their customers then, corporate, and then to get into DeFi too. I mean, we're heading in that direction where in another year they're going to start looking at this stuff as DeFi gets bigger. But you need to have that in place, and that's kind of what Blockset has put in place behind the scenes, and that's kind of mixed in with PolySign. And then we got Adam Tradman's with Ripple Asia, that new partnership with TNG Financial. That seemed to not get as much attention as it should. That is actually much bigger than it seems, because they are one of the giant e-wallet companies in Southeast Asia. They have Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, that whole area. They have millions of wallets that cash payout. So basically, the QR code, cash out. So replacing MoneyGram in that region, it was an upgrade, a huge upgrade, because this is an up and coming startup who could be another unicorn. And they created this Tanglo company basically as a mutual, like a joint venture between Ripple and TNG Financial to run ODL. And that's one of the things that MoneyGram was the fiat off-ramp. But obviously with the US and all the things going on there, but at the same time, the Southeast Asian market, you want a company that's already expanded there that has the e-wallets. That's where we're going, where MoneyGram was more that walk-in location and payout, an older company, where TNG is an up-and-coming startup. And that's, you're going to need the e-wallets. Eventually will turn into digital wallets. And that's where we're going. And they're set up with that. And Adam Tradman is behind the whole Ripple Asia, putting that together. So going back to my point about the SEC, if you wanted to make attention, now would be the time where SBI would do something in some capacity. I mean, they're testing the FX market, and this would be now when you would do that. Maybe he didn't want to be on the board of directors at the time of doing something with SBI. Ripple and even Ripple Asia might be too much, but SBI is Japan. The U.S. has no oversight of or any reach into Japan and banking. So that's where we could see something. I don't think Ripple is just going to sit down. I would think behind the scenes they're doing things. And at the same time, Ripple knows that the John Deaton coming in right now with the SEC saying XRP still is security, that's given the opening for John Deaton to come in and the XRP community. They have to now either face that head on, and he's going to be able to literally decimate anything they say. I mean, the prosecutor does not understand XRP at all. And he's saying there's no utility. I mean, John Deaton doesn't go in there. He's going to give, an abundance of use cases and everything going on to where the judge has to give summary judgment, or the SEC is going to have to let that go. And either one of those are happening. And when they do, XRP gets the clarity, the legal clarity, and will be the only one. Because technically, Bitcoin and XRP don't have the legal clarity. Because what Bill Hinman said was his words and not the SEC, technically. But it went at the market and industry took it like they had clarity. But this would be actually legal clarity. So what turn of events would that be? Is if XRP was the only one that gets the legal clarity, Ripple still battles with the SEC, and just goes on with it. But XRP would be free to do, it would then basically be the only asset with actual legal clarity. So institutions would feel most comfortable out of all the assets using XRP, even if Ripple is in a lawsuit still. Mm-hmm. Well, they made a mistake. They made a mistake saying that XRP was a security now. That was huge blunder because they tried to just throw the kitchen sink at Ripple. And going after Brad and Chris was ridiculous. They're never going to win that. There's no chance. They would literally have to prove they intentionally did that knowing it's security. Not going to happen. And the clip that I showed on Twitter even shows that that former SEC guy who was also in the private side said it's very difficult to go after an individual, even in fraud. This isn't even fraud. So the judge already knows this. Now you have them saying this is a security now. That's ridiculous. So either the SEC is going to have to give in, so we could see an announcement where they say that XRP is not a security. I mean, what does that do to the market? I mean, that's huge. I mean, that's like something that could happen any day, next week, next month, or John Deaton's going to go in there and pretty much just embarrass the SEC. And will Gensler let that happen, or somebody else at the SEC? Like, there has to be a lot of eyes on this right now. And I don't think that, they're going to let that happen. I think the SEC is going to give in at this point now of the matter. But they pushed too far, and that's what you get. I mean, they just, it's just, I don't know. I don't know. I was out of my wind right there. Oh, they can't hear you? Oh, shit. Damn it. Sorry, Patty. We can't hear you. No, I think it's because of the other thing. I'm sorry. Let's put this on. Can you say something now?
Can y'all hear me now?
Can we hear Patty?
Yeah, can y'all hear me?
Can you hear Patty?
Hello?
I don't know if they
Maybe
can
it's
hear
something with my... No, you can hear me, so it's not on my end.
They can hear you. You're good. All right. We got you back.
Okay.
Sorry about that, guys.
Oh, nice. Y'all got a lot of yeses. That's good.
Yeah, so I guess you could say what you said before and nobody heard you.
Cool. Yeah, so... That's too good. Yeah, nothing like a solid...
right.
10-minute Mickey rant. That's pretty
Sorry.
good.
XDC.
So yeah,
you go.
You want to? Okay.
No,
okay.
you go.
Yeah.
You haven't spoke.
Okay. So I was just adding in the so we saw this library coin recently just get is basically being pursued by the SEC now too, and they had an interesting tweet where they pointed out that they know of around a dozen other cryptos that are being actively pursued by the SEC, which is a pretty big deal. So I don't think everybody in the market realizes this yet, that the SEC may have a long list that they're coming after, and XRP is just the first one. And XRP is fortunate because they have a really big community behind them, as we see with like John Deaton and basically the flank case that we have going on at this point. And then also with Ripple's firepower. I mean, with Mary Jo White, the former SEC chairman, and then just everybody else that they have that's interconnected with the government and stuff. They have a lot of firepower, but some of these other cryptos aren't going to have them. So this is like a pretty big point setting this all off to see what kind of power the SEC is going to have going forward. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out. That was kind of,
Yeah, no, that's important because, the rest of the industry not paying attention, thinking like, oh, it's just a Ripple. No, they're on to the next thing. Here is this case might not go. I mean, I don't think we're seeing settlement. If Ripple was going to settle, they would have settled by now. They're not going to agree to any strings attached to any disclosures or anything with the SEC. It's not going to happen. So I know that was like something likely, but not when they threw the kitchen sink at them. That was trying to get them to settle, and they refused. They just said no. And now we're getting to a point where we might get clarity for XRP, but the suit goes on. And that's a scenario we never really saw playing out when this suit first happened. But now with the XRP community, I mean, we're forcing them to make a decision. So we get our clarity. Now, did Ripple know this going in? I mean, maybe the lawyers did. That, it gave the opportunity for us to speak. So now we were able to meet the SEC head on. And examples is the SEC would not determine if it was a security or not. So if they can't say it's a security, how can they say Brad knew it was a security? So they're going to lose in the end, and Ripple's just going to play it out, I think, to the end. The only other scenario, I think, is that Gensler or whoever is calling the shots at the SEC to try to save face before this gets too ugly and the SEC loses everything, just tries to, keep their integrity and then drop it. But I don't know how that would happen. But I think we'll know in the next month. Mm-hmm.
They could just slap them with a fine. I mean, they don't have to get a ton of stuff from Ripple in the end. I mean, the SEC would count it as a win if Ripple accepted some kind of fine. And that's kind of what happened in the past with some of these other cases we've seen.
It's not the same, though.
Yeah.
Because their holdings, though, is the problem. They don't want anything over that XRP that they have. They don't want any kind of disclosures that they got to do. Like Kick, they got to disclose everything they do when they sell XRP. They sell Kick tokens. I think even EOS and Block One are tied with strings to the SEC from their settlement. And I don't think Ripple wants any attachments. I mean, when you think about what they're trying to do, they're already regulated by FinCEN. They're a money service provider. And they're technically commodities with the trading and everything is under the CFTC. There's no reason why the SEC should have their claws in Ripple. And that's what this came down to. And that's why Brad's saying, hey, the disclosures, we're the ones who are disclosing everything. And you want us to disclose more? They just want to have some control over them and some ability to, control, basically. And that's what this is about, and that's why it got this far, and they threw the kitchen sink at them. I just think they're going to lose. I mean, they went too far with it. The best shot would have been just investment contract, and that was it. They might have been able to pull that out, but I think it's going to end ugly for them.
I mean, if all of us average Joes out here can sit here and easily pick through points in their case and all the contradictions and then all the connections that are dubious behind the scenes with the players at the SEC and everything, world-class lawyers are going to be able to do that, and a judge is going to be able to see that. So,
and Deaton is able to say things that Ripple's lawyers can't, and that's really going to add to the firepower, and it also trips the SEC up. They're used to people, like Deaton said, just submitting to them, and they tell them what to do. Where this kind of they're not used to the investors coming at them. That's a big change. And, they're not sure how to act. So that's why they're oh, you're just coming in here because you want the price to go up. They don't even know how to react because it's a situation they've never been in. And, they're kind of going to have to think about that. So the first action, they tried to slap it back, basically what Deaton said. And the judge said, no, you could come in. And now let's see how they react.
Yeah. I mean, also, we can't forget this whole time, they've really been without a true leader for 3 months or so now. So who knows what's going on there? I'm sure the people that were stuck with the case, like Hester Pierce, are kind of just they're in a tough spot. I don't know if they can just go and drop it, as an interim running the SEC. So that's another thing. What we really just got to see what Gensler says when he gets in too. It's a lot is going to depend on that, on how this case progresses. So
yeah, that's a good question. Who's really calling the shots? Did they just leave it to that prosecutor and say, hey, just do everything you can till, you can't? I mean, at some point, I don't think it's going the way they actually planned. With the whole XRP community getting involved, I think they thought if they can make Brad and Chris look as bad as they can, and that would just get the negative media attention, and it would just force Ripple to fold. And they just kept hanging in there and pushing and fighting back, and actually now it's blown back in their face that they did this, because one by one they're going to lose. And at some point, the judge is, she's reasonable, and that's a good thing for us. So all this time and effort that we put in, and research and learning and, community effort. I mean, it is a community. They're trying to deny that it's not a community. It's not decentralized. There's not people developing on it. And it's a straight up lie. So they're going to get what they deserve.
I mean, they probably expected us to flip on Ripple with all that
exactly.
stuff. And that's not the case, because we know what we're, what's the possibilities here. And we know Ripple's working towards something that's going to be beneficial for all of us, as well as like the XRP ledger, completely open source, decentralized. Like anybody can try, like work to build on it and help increase like its value to the world. So
Yes.
yeah, I
Exactly.
think they don't know, they don't really understand what they're dealing with, in my opinion. I think like this whole space has already blown them by, and they're just trying to, latch on at this point. It's last ditch effort. If they're going to do something, the time to do it was in the mid 2010s,
Mm-hmm.
before everybody else started getting on board with this stuff and it went more mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously the rate of innovation, like people that are heavily in this space can barely, keep up with it. So I don't think they really know what they've gotten into at this point.
Yeah, well, a lot's changed in 3 years. Like, imagine if this case would have came in like 2017 or like right after the big run up. They might have had a much better case against Ripple. Now, it's a lot harder to prove that. So, what happens when this ends, though? I mean, the rest of the industry will kind of, it's not going to give clarity to everybody when this ends. I mean, so like XRP will get clarity, and that's basically it. That doesn't give XLM clarity. It's probably unlikely that the SEC would come after them, but it doesn't just say, oh, you're good now. XRP will be good. And Bitcoin, Ethereum do their thing. But it's Congress who needs to act. That's what this is about. I mean, they're the ones who are responsible for putting out a framework. And the SEC is just doing what they do with their guidelines. So,
yeah. I mean,
I see.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. What I was going to say is now, the longer that this case drags out, it's the more time slipping away, though, because, there's only so long before, DeFi is taking off and all that now. And now's the time when you get clarity. Ripple's got block set ready to go, like literally turnkey solution with the banks, any institution, Fidelity. I mean, KPMG, Deloitte, Galaxy Digital. Those are big names, Fireblocks. Those are the big players behind CipherTrace. What's the other one? Chain Analysis. So that's all the KYC AML. I mean, that's the money that's going to be pouring in to the regulated assets. And they could build investment products on top of, XRP then. It's cleared. It's a currency or a commodity. Whatever it is, it's not a security. So that's... at least something that's out of the mix, just get out of the way. I want to answer this question, though, about XDC. So, yeah, Lord Vendetta, yes, I like XDC as in the fact, it's kind of competition, but you know what? It's a no-brainer on just grabbing a little. I'm not going all in on it. Absolutely not. Needs a lot to prove itself, a lot. But it's, it's going on a quarter, and that can't be denied. So that's definitely, I think everyone should look at that, just from a standpoint of being in this market and you seeing what connections are made. It's obviously not on that many exchanges, so we'll probably get on more, and then they'll have more secondary market trading, and it could be used in more ways. But I'm not sure about the long term. It's still unproven, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't even know enough about it to comment at this point, but I do know that it's not very available in the U.S. at this point. So.
Thank you, yeah. Merry Christmas 2.0. What if Ripple loses? Well, here's the thing. Number one, it's when we're talking about this if situation, the issue at hand right now that's coming up is XRP a security or not. John Deaton's literally going to go in there. The SEC can't prove XRP is a security. So there's really no losing that. It's like impossible to lose. So we're either going to get clarity there, or the judge is going to go to summary judgment, or SEC is going to drop it beforehand. Now then, if Ripple lost the case after that, say they find them, then there was an investment contract. That would be an interesting scenario to play out, but it might just, that would be interesting how that would be, because XRP would be freed, but they would kind of have a little control over the escrow and the way they could utilize it. So that would kind of damper Ripple's long-term plans, but it would have no real effect on XRP, I think, in the market in the short term.
Yeah, I
But
mean, I'm bullish if XRP is not going to be a security going forward. There's not many cryptos out there that can say that for sure. So, I mean, I think that'd be very good. We already know there's tons of people developing on the XRP
mhm,
ledger. SBI has their whole stuff they got going
yeah,
on in Asia. And I mean, who's to say like Ripple can, use the escrow in some other way where they're not the ones just like directly benefiting from it.
yeah,
So,
they might have
yeah.
set that up already. Like
Yeah.
Bob Way on an interview when he did with Brad Kimes in 2019, he said when that escrow is released, it goes into another escrow. Like Greg Kidd has an option for 1 billion. There's another escrow or a smart contract that holds those, and then they go somewhere. They don't come out and somebody sits at the desk and says, we're going to sell 20 million to you and we're going to sell this to you. I mean, maybe in the early days, but now that escrow is coming out and just, either going back in or they have it just set up to go autonomously somewhere based on conditions that are met. It goes just into like a liquidity pool or some kind of reserve, and it just sits there. And maybe the SEC can't see everything that happens after the release, and then they get frustrated and they want to know what's going on. That's why they keep saying disclosure, disclosure, disclosure. So, and Ripple's already disclosing though. So what do they want? And they were running a node too, so they could go see the ledger.
Yeah, and I mean, like Ripple still has the option to leave the US. So it's, if the US
Mm-hmm.
just wants to be circumvented with this global payment system that's super efficient, cheap and readily available liquid market, then, that's fine if that's what they want to do. I mean, I don't see Ripple sticking around in the US if, they're going to have their hands tied behind their back the whole time.
Exactly.
So,
And
yeah, they
now,
just won't do business here. It's just that's what it'll come down to.
mhm. I mean, but the facts are the facts. There's 172 validators on the XRP ledger right now. 172. There's 900 nodes. Ripple is running a minute amount of those. So there's impossible to say right now. That's just the ledger. We're not talking about the movement of XRP. The holdings, we didn't buy from Ripple. Nobody bought from them. So that argument's going to just fall apart when Deaton gets in there. I don't think they're going to let it happen. But it is interesting, though, Patty. We were talking about this earlier, that the XRP ledger went from having like 37 nodes to now they have this new RIP validator registry. Oh, let me share the screen. That all these nodes popped up. Now, this could be from Flare, and we were talking about that. What are your thoughts on this with all these validators? And they're really not needed, but they're there.
Yeah, I mean, they have in the Flare Network Discord going on right now. They're basically recruiting people who want to be validators and helping them get set up. So I know a bunch of people have been spinning those up of late, which I mean, I it's a good thing. The more validators you have, I think the better in the long run. And it's also setting the stage for like Flare Network and how the state connector system's there. So these validators can basically survey both sides of the aisle when it comes to that connection between Flare and the XRPL. So that, I mean, that's kind of cool seeing that pop up with Flare coming down the pike. So I'm excited to see that. And I know we're looking into, that whole process and everything and how those work. But yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely seeing the activity on the ledger and the validators. It's getting exciting because for years it was just kind of just Ripple and some things going on, but with these new there's 862 nodes right now on the XRP ledger, and the foundation is running the full nodes where the activity actually goes into the ledger. So it's not Ripple running any of the stuff. So even other institutions or other entities should feel more comfortable when, everyone's like, oh, Ripple's centralized, XRP ledger's centralized. And a lot of reports put that out for years. So the SEC is just kind of seeing that, running with it, but that's going to end. So what we've seen for years and that perspective towards XRP, I think can change dramatically in a short period of time. Let's take a little time, but as enterprises come in and then they start adopting XRP too, building products and apps around it. So it's really more than just trading. So institutions coming in, it's not just like, yeah, we linked up a Coinbase account for ourselves. It's like, well, what about their clients, their corporate customers? What are they going to build? And now we got Backed coming out, and we got some other things going on. So I like DeFi. I think is really going to explode in the next 2 years. We're going to see it outpace this whole stablecoin thing they keep bringing up in a lot of the Bloomberg articles, like stablecoins are the next big thing. Like, they're going to be used, but they're going to be part of DeFi. But they don't earn anybody money. So nobody's going to just use random stablecoins for payments, when they're building CBDCs. Like, what are your thoughts on that, Patty?
I mean, well, personally, I like what Ari's doing, the Ari stablecoin with Probity and Trustline, where they're making it more like a peer-to-peer credit network. So I think that has like really solid implications for as far as DeFi, and then also having that union account on the XRP ledger. But yeah, I mean, if we have CBDCs, you don't really need stable coins for payments, especially domestically. Maybe they could be used in cross-border transactions. Like if Ari moves over to the XRP ledger and has enough liquidity and everything, we could see that in the future, like being used as a unit of account for transfers. But yeah, I mean, if CBDCs are going to come, that's going to be like the predominant method, I believe, as far as domestic payments and everything. Yeah, and so I saw Zerbson had a question about basically the relation between XRP and Spark prices and how they'll behave, whether it's like separately or together. So correlation. Do you have any thoughts on that? Also, I have some stuff to add too.
Sure, I'll be quick with this. So the correlation with XRP to Spark is really going to be more about how Spark's going to be dependent on how much FXRP is minted. So I think out of all the F assets, XRP is going to be the one that's going to be brought over, in the most quantity and the soonest. So it'll force more collateral to be used and therefore cut the supply and increase the demand of Spark. So, how that affects XRP's price, I'll leave that for you.
Yeah, so the Flare fork, like basically the utility fork off the XRP ledger, is designed like in a way to be like a symbiotic relationship between the two. So if you have we have 4 F assets that are integrated at this point when we launch and the F asset system goes live. So if these coins now have this ability to ascertain yield risk-free from the FTSO with detachable votes when they go onto the Flare network, to me, that drives the demand for these integrated networks. Also, you're adding in new liquidity pairs over a decentralized exchange with each other. And all this just other stuff that's being built out for them. So I think that will drive the demand for these coins because they're part of the on-ramp onto the Flare network other than just buying Spark flat out. So I think in that way, it can help out with the price. And then as far as the Spark price, like the white paper states that one of the main functions of Spark is to act as collateral. So, I mean, you can almost think of this like similarly to like maybe Cardano, where they use the main token to stake. So it's locking it up. Well, Spark's going to get locked up on the Flare network very often. And the more demand we see coming from F assets, the more Spark that's going to be bought up and put into the collateral system to meet that demand. So that should have an upward effect on price over time. Now, if we don't see like a ton of demand coming over for F assets for whatever reason, then, it's going to have a negative effect, but it's kind of reliant on people bringing their basically dormant value onto the Flare network to be used in DeFi products, the credit and lending. We'll have tokenized stocks and real estate in the future. So there's a lot of reasons to come over. And then on top of that, you're going to have extremely fast transactions and low gas fees. So, everything's being built for that demand to be there. And they're also bootstrapping the network by providing tons of incentives to bring F assets over with the rewards pools they've set up. And then obviously the built-in yield with the FTSO. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of drivers for that demand. So I feel good about it in the long run. Now, if you ask me what's going to happen in the first few weeks after the launch, I think that's anyone's guess. I guess I'm more pessimistic about how people will act. And I think a lot of people will just sell it off, seeing it as free money rather than a really good opportunity for like long-term wealth accumulation. So we'll see. I think it could probably fall at the beginning. especially maybe like a quick buy up and then right into a dump. But I would see that as a good outcome for me, at least, because I'd be looking to buy after that.
Yeah, I could see that too. And I think another thing that's dependent is XRP's situation at the time. So where is XRP when Flare goes live and launches? If we're still somehow they're delaying the clarity on XRP, and like they're delaying somehow Deaton getting there, and they're delaying the whole summary judgment, that, would be the worst case scenario. And, we could see Spark dip. So opportunity. I don't think that's going to happen. I think there's going to be a lot of eyes on it because XRP will have clarity by then, most likely, hoping. And then Spark, is just going to explode. I just think it's just going to be definitely higher than most people expect because it's only a sixth of the circulating supply of XRP. So I feel like it's just psychological. You're going to look at it and compare it to XRP's price, even though the supply is a lot less on the trading market. And the coin market caps are going to probably make the circulating supply look higher, not even on purpose, because those rewards pools, right, Patty, are going to show on the circulating supply, or do you think they're not? Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I mean, it really just depends how you do the statistics. I imagine as they get released, they'll be considered part of the circulating supply. And I'm mainly saying that because I think like websites like CoinMarketCap probably won't count undistributed Spark towards circulating supply. So that's kind of where I'm leaning towards, just because like with the XRP and escrow, they don't count that as circulating supply into market cap. So yeah.
So they're going to only count 15% of the distribution. So the unclaimed Spark that goes into the rewards pool, they're not going to count, right?
Yes, but once it'll start being released daily, so I mean it'll start adding up quickly over time. Obviously, since they're releasing a lot of new Spark into the network through those rewards pools and the FTSO rewards. Yeah.
Okay, so here's a good question. Polynesian USA. We'll probably both have to answer this one. If there's no risk to losing FXRP, why will the collateral Spark have risk attached to it if the underlying asset can't be lost? I don't understand why there's risk attached to the collateral. Well, the underlying asset, XRP, there's no way to actually lock up XRP on the ledger and then be able to like just get it when you want. There's no smart contracts. And escrow doesn't work. And same with all Litecoin, all those other networks. So what they're doing here is they're separating the ability to mint FXRP and those who put up collateral. Like you can't put your own collateral up. You could mint it and always be guaranteed to get back XRP, or if not XRP, the value in XRP for Spark at the worst case scenario. But that's unlikely because the agent has to have it there for you. And if they don't, then somebody takes over their position, and that 2.5 times collateral, they earn it then. So the agent has every reason to have it there for you when you go to redeem it, if you do. And if you don't have it, the other agents are going to come in and supply it and then take that person's Spark collateral, which is 2.5 times the value of that XRP. But if they didn't do that either, at the worst case, you would get the Spark. But that's very unlikely. What it does, I'll leave it to you, Patty, to explain how the XRP on the ledger is a unique feature here. So instead of wrapping, this really makes it more economically viable. And in the long term, it's actually a much better, it's trustless. You can't lose if you're minting FXRP. There's no risk to that. But there would be risk. You could explain that side.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I was going to add, I would say like there's no risk in losing value when you mint FXRP. So like technically if they defaulted on your position and you're the unlucky person that happens to, then like Mickey's saying, you get paid out in Spark plus a little extra. Now, if you're not paying attention and you sit on your hands for 2 weeks, then the price of XRP explodes during that time, and compared to Spark, and you haven't gone and bought back that XRP or the FXRP, then, you know, you could be in a poor position there, but that's not a direct result from the actual system, like losing your XRP. So you'll always get the value back. That's why you're going to need to you're going to want to pay attention to that, at least, you know, every once in a while, checking in to making sure everything's okay. I personally think that the defaults are going to be really low because they have backup incentives for other agents to come in and provide that collateral. And then also the haircut on the agents who default or don't honor redemptions is like 40% of the original value they had put in collateral, which in all cases, even if XRP like goes up astronomically, would be a bigger loss than if they just kept the XRP. So that's important to know, that like the incentives are all there for it to be honored and for them not to mess up. And that also is why I personally think that like the agents are going to be like actual like financial entities. And Hugo's even said in the past, like they're going to be people that we know. I could see somebody like Pat Global being an agent because they like basically run all these master nodes. So they'll have eyes over all the blockchains connecting with Flare as well as Flare, which will be important for agents operating so that they can like honor redemptions in a timely manner or put more collateral in case. Plus, they're going to have to figure out like with the XRP. So we'll get into that aspect. Basically, when you're going to mint FXRP or FLTC, you're giving up the native asset, so XRP, to the agent. So you're basically transferring it over to the agent's wallet on the XRP ledger. And when you come back to redeem, they have to give it back to you. But what they do with that XRP in the meantime is up to them. But one of the things they're going to have to keep into account is that they can't just be like having it locked up somewhere where they can't access it in case you need to redeem your XRP. Otherwise, they're going to be penalized extremely heavily. So I imagine they're going to always have some readily available for redemption at all times. But, you know, it's good that they're doing it this way where they can use it, because I would say at a 5% creation fee to post that collateral, especially with the risk of default and how serious that is, then there's not really a big incentive for agents to provide collateral. But now if they have access to the original native asset and can earn some yield in the meantime while you're using your F asset on the Flare network, then that's a much larger incentive. So that's kind of why they're doing it that way. If you just locked it up, then the agents would charge a much higher creation fee. So like you're saying, it's very economical and it helps the system be dynamic and everything. So.
Exactly. And as more, like the whole data, that's really where the agents are sitting. They're managing, and they're going to need all the data that's going on the Flare network of how things are moving. I mean, this moves into like machine learning. But before you get there, you need that infrastructure. And that's what's really all being built behind the scenes right now. We're going to see more of those like blockchain explorers and Flare. And since it uses Ethereum standard, there's going to be so much easy porting over of things from Ethereum and then adapting them to Flare and just making them better. And since Ethereum is kind of the standard, so we do need to keep in mind that, yes, the Ethereum mainnet probably is going to struggle, you know, to continue its wave of adoption here the way it is. But Ethereum's smart contracts, I do not think are going anywhere. That kind of is turning into the industry standard. It's almost like every blockchain kind of has to have, you know, Ethereum virtual machine. And then some networks like Cardano, which are making like where you could have different smart contracts on the network, is a long-term thing. But in the meantime, we're going to have the XRP ledger able to still do its fast payments and liquidity and open up the actual ledger's DEX to be used. So Flares, anything that's on Flare. So that XRP technically then, Patty, could be used as liquidity on the XRP ledger DEX. Is that a scenario we could see?
Yeah, I mean, it is, as long as like the agents are going to be able to honor redemptions that are coming in. And so this is where like machine learning and AI are going to play a big role, because they're going to be basically all this data that's coming in to Flare Network, since it's basically a massive data provisioning network with the FTSO. They're going to be able to have eyes on both sides of the ledger, market conditions and everything, and basically having bots at some point, you know, figuring out how much they need to have available at all times, is there volatility coming in? Do they need to put more collateral in preemptively to avoid like, any negative scenarios where the Spark price and another F assets price diverge too much? So there's a lot of considerations. And also on your EVM point, one of the nice things about Flare is that it's not like strictly going to have to stick with the EVM throughout time. So if some better standard comes along, the Flare network could adopt those, like that code base for smart and smart contracts in the future, which I think is good. Have some flexibility. And can I jump on? I saw a few people asking about the go live date. And so Hugo recently said today that basically like they will be able to have the network ready by the second half of June. So I wouldn't expect it any earlier than that. He did say the only thing that will hold them up is security audits and how long those are going to take, because they're not going to launch if those are not fully completed. Like they want everything to be as solid as possible, which I'm not going to be. I realize they said Q2 of 2021, but like if it goes a little into July because they're making sure the network's going to be safe for use, then I'm all for that. It's different when the network's live and then people move around like go live dates for stuff. But like before it's launched, like it's not here. It's not like actually live yet. So I'm glad that like they're taking that approach. Yeah, but I just be patient, and it gives us more time to learn stuff. So you could see that as positive, or maybe XRP's court case gets over, in the extra time. So yeah.
Exactly. That's a great point, because we have to keep in mind here that the 6-month window for claiming your Spark is on June 11th. I really never expected it to go live before that date, and because then there would still be unclaimed Spark out there. So it was always going to probably be after June 11th. Like Patty said, if it goes a little later, no big deal, but it's multiple security audits that have to take place here. It's new technology, state connectors. We're dealing with different networks. It's not just one DApp being built on top of something like an ERC20 that you could just spin up. These are next generation blockchains. That's really what it is. Being a layer 1, but at the same time, the state connector. I mean, who knows where technology goes with the way like Cardano's doing the multi-layer smart contracts. That could be adapted to maybe other networks. So the governance on Flare is designed in a way that will allow it to evolve and adapt to those new technologies. It's not locked into anything necessarily from that, but it does have the Avalanche consensus, which is the breakthrough in consensus. And I think in the years going forward, we're going to see more of that adopted instead of just this delegated proof of stake. Like that was just the assumption after proof of work. So
yeah, and to add on to that, like we don't know where all this tech is going. I mean, I just think back to when I first got in at the end of 2017 and how much has developed in just 3 years. Like once like machine learning and artificial intelligence get deployed on blockchains and more people are using them and they have more data and they understand how they can upgrade all these blockchains better. I mean, the sky's the limit. Like technology's not slowing down. I know you shared like a great blog post on how the rate of change is increasing and how time basically, like let's say you lived a year back in like 1950, but like today that's like, 30 days. I don't know like what their exact numbers were, but it's kind of that, like how fast everything is moving, and that's only going to continually increase exponentially. So it's just like we shouldn't cut ourselves off to any possibilities. And what I like about Flare is that it's like being very flexible. There's a lot of things that you can do. It has ability to pivot, which I think is a massive thing. Like I know Ripple in the past has gotten like a lot of flack for like changing business models, and people look at that as like, poor business basically. But I mean, in this world, it's the best way is to be like light and agile and be able to like pivot on a on a dime. So
yeah, and all the integrations and the partnerships are going to show in the future as the institutions come in. Everything that they set up, like that South African exchange Zago, that's now set up for ODL. So we're gonna have this convergence of ODL doing its payments, and then you're gonna have all just like the enterprises coming in doing their stuff. And building different financial products. And it's DeFi that's going to turn into the attraction. So it's like, well, what else is these cryptos for. And for a while, it was just speculation, Bitcoin, investment, futures, ETFs. And now it's like, wait, now we could create other types of financial products. Okay, that's where we are now. What's the next step in DeFi? And that's when we get to tokenization. Now you start bringing in tokenized assets, putting that as collateral, and you could create new types of financial products. And that's kind of what Trustline Credit Network's doing. So they're going to be a really fascinating project. So that's the one that was designed with Flare Network's design in mind. So that was really a planned thing that they were going to bring that stablecoin over there. But I know the design is still being worked on, and there's going to be a test net in the next few years. But we'll have one thing that's missing. I'm going to say this. There's a gaping hole in the whole wallet integration thing here of like, how do you delegate your vote? How do you put your collateral in? And how do you actually hold the assets? Like, there's nothing being talked about the wallet. So I think there's something big coming that will fill that all in. And maybe it's not just one solution. It's, I think, a back end, which is like block sets, and it will allow any institution or any entity then to create their own front end and offer their own customers product services and wallets for their customers and attract new ones. And then, so like say SBI wants a wallet for their customers, but then also Fidelity wants one. Do they want the same wallet? No, but they could have the same back end and totally different front ends. And that would make it easier because then you would still have all the data. And what's great about block sets is it's just one API. That's all they need to do. So this will allow corporations to come in and, invest. Because right now they're doing it through Coinbase, is my understanding.
Yeah.
Here's a good question if you want to take.
Oh, yeah, which one?
I passed it.
You remember what it was about?
Here it is. How do we delegate to a signal provider by sending our Spark to a signal provider's address?
Yeah, so the nice thing about Spark is it comes with built-in yield via the FTSO, and you can think of Spark as programmable money. So it's like different than normal fiat at this point because they created this detachable vote. So there's two of them that comes with Spark. One is used for governance and one is used for the FTSO. So basically all you have to do is delegate that detachable vote from your wallet to a signal provider. And then the rest is taken care of you, and they'll have a way for the Spark to be delivered directly to your wallet and everything. So it'll be really easy, and the Spark never leaves your wallet. And the nice thing about it is that some of these applications that spin up, you're going to be able to use your Spark there. So you could post it as collateral in the Trustline Credit Network, basically, and then possibly still delegate your vote to the FTSO. So you'd be earning yield in two ways. I would be pretty surprised if with Trustline, you wouldn't be able to do that because they're building it like in part with the Spark dependent application model. And they have a whole accounting system like on how they keep track of all the Sparks. So I think you'll definitely be able to do that there. And that was something like that Hugo and the team really pointed out in the white paper, like very strongly, is that when people build applications, they don't want to like have the users be stuck with this opportunity cost. Is like, do I use my Spark in this like DeFi application, but I can't delegate my FTSO vote and earn the risk-free yield? That puts, users in a bad place. And it also could take away from the decentralization of the Flare Time Series Oracle. So they were like really pushing for developers to make sure that they have this thing called a Spark claim, where if your Spark is actively being used or like as collateral in some kind of DeFi product, that they can account for that and you can still delegate your detachable vote to a signal provider or like do it on your own to the FTSO. So that's like a really big consideration with governance going forward is when we vote on new projects that are going to be using Spark in the future, like ideally you want them where you can participate in that product, but also you can use your detachable FTSO vote and earn yield two ways. And then you could also, it keeps the Flare Time Series Oracle decentralized. So that's really important because like Hugo calls that the beating heart of Flare. And that's why they have this whole incentive structure built around it, is because they're trying to make a truly decentralized Oracle that can't suffer DeFi hacks and things of that nature. So it's a big consideration going forward.
Yes, and this is one thing I think that technology of the detachable vote, they really didn't go into it too much in the white paper, but that's something that's going to really be like a differentiator between ETH 2.0 and Flare network in like a year or two from now. As Ethereum 2.0 is going live, it's going to now come out and, and if Flare gets the adoption like we think it will, it's going to be inferior in that way because there's all this like Ethereum staked and you give up your stake with that. You give up your vote with that to the validators who are going to be the whales, just like the miners, where Flare is going to be decentralized out the gate because it was just distributed to all the XRP holders except their whales. So you just took a whole community, eliminated the whales, and gave it to everyone else. So you started out decentralized, and now the difference going forward here is, like you said, you could use the asset and still earn, where you're going to have Ethereum. You're like, okay, well, I could put it in there and stake it. Now, wait, I have Spark. It's like, wait, I could use it and I could earn more what they're earning in staking rewards. So that's going to be something playing out long term because I don't think there's going to be just one winner for these smart contract platforms. There's going to be a lot. I mean, there's going to be a lot, and there's going to be different payment networks too. So just like I say, there's going to be XRP Ledger could succeed, XLM can. XLM just doesn't have the infrastructure built around it for enterprises the way Ripple built everything. So I think that's an issue with that. And the other thing I see that is going to take a little longer with Stellar is that Ripple realized the Anchor gateway model needed an update and there needed to be certain things to make that really work well. And they've been working on that behind the scenes where kind of Stellar kind of just did the anchors and just let's go. And, because they've taken advantage of the technology and Ripple kind of put that on the back burner for now and built RippleNet. That's what RippleNet is. So here's a good question. Brian Cho asks, so can I use Spark in both Probity and Trustline DApp to earn interest and earn by delegating vote to FTSO? So yes, you could use Spark in, say, the Probity Vault and earn interest on it from that, and you should be able to delegate your vote and earn Spark from that too. Yes, you should be.
I would be shocked if you couldn't.
Yeah.
Just based on everything I've read from the Flare documentation and then trust lines, like having the accounting system behind it all. I think everything should be set up fine for that.
Yeah, as long as you have control, as long as you're the only one who can access that Spark. So if it's like you put it in the vault and it's only you have the key to get it out, then yes, you should be able to get it. If it's in like a liquidity pool and it's bouncing all around, I'm not sure. That's one we don't have an answer yet because we don't know exactly how it works. I think there's something a little more with the breakthroughness of the technology of how you could delegate like that. There's something more there with the authentication and identities and pay string. I mean, there's got to be a way that it's going to be able to go back to your wallet address, but your token is somewhere else. Like, that's, they're going to need to more connections than just the token. Something else is tying to you, to the delegate, to the signal provider, to the FTSO, and then to where your actual token is, right? I mean, they all need to be tied together in a way.
Yeah, and that's what, like, they've set it up to work that way. Now it's just a matter of the people that are spinning up applications are gonna, accommodate that basically, which they have every incentive if they want people to use Spark in their application to provide that. Otherwise, the Spark's going to move to other applications where people can still delegate their vote to signal providers on the FTSO. And also on this point, like, this is like a pretty great breakthrough. Like, being able to earn risk-free yield with a detachable vote is pretty huge. So, like, let's think longer term here. Like, when Spark's or Flare Network's like been around for a year or two, and we start seeing like pension funds and investment funds and things of that nature start looking for other places to get yield because the safety of using a treasury bond basically doesn't even cover the cost of inflation at this point. So if you have an asset that's in DeFi that's like secure, it's scalable, it's fast, it's cheap, and then also it has built-in risk-free yield, I mean, that seems like a very desirable thing for pension funds to become a part of, because they could just do stuff at the base layer of Flare, which is, less risky than maybe some other things that will spin up. And, they're going to be able to earn that yield that they weren't getting anymore, because right now the only place people can go for yield is, speculation and cryptos for the most part, and then the stock market. And that's it right now. The bond market is, basically just pressed down by the Federal Reserve, like all the time. And across the world too, there's some countries with negative interest rates. Like, people don't want that for, like, if you're running a pension fund, I can't imagine that, the people that you're representing and like the money you're managing is going to be very happy if you're just sitting there and inflation's outrunning your book, basically. So in the long term, it's very, very good thing to have.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to answer Norseman's question here. He goes, okay, so this is riding off the XRPL and you can stake it and make income. Well, first one's kind of. It's a utility fork. So it's running on its own network. It's not running on the XRP ledger, but it has a two-way bridge to the XRP ledger that's trustless. And you don't stake it necessarily. You delegate a vote that's detachable to earn yield. So you still maintain possession, but you could stake it and delegate at the same time and earn Spark and XRP together. And that's how you make income. So the way to earn yield on two sides with different assets is really powerful. And now the F assets have the same similar aspect to it, because instead of just giving the excess supply to one entity or distributing it to everyone, they have these rewards pools that use kind of the same concept, where if you just bring in your F asset over, it's going to reward you. And that's what's going to make Flare network a little more desirable than other networks. Everyone's like, oh, well, they bring it over wrapped Bitcoin and wrapped this. And look how successful Binance has been with that approach. And Ethereum. But you know what? You bring it over to Ethereum and you pay high gas fees. You bring it over to Binance and basically you're trusting Binance then. With this, you don't got to trust anybody. There's no risk. Then enterprise institutions are not going to trust like Binance out in the middle of they're not regulated. So that's not going to happen. Not anytime soon. But Flare Network, it's trusting nobody to bring your Bitcoin over. So we could see that's where corporate that's why I don't think Ripple's going to bash Bitcoin too much, because all that Bitcoin that's brought over to Flare is less transactional volume on the Bitcoin network, the blockchain. So there's less mining, there's no transactions, and it actually lightens up the load of the blockchain, right? On Bitcoin, if you move it off there and lock it up, right?
Yeah, it definitely could. And I saw Hugo, somebody was asking about this in the Telegram group today. Mm-hmm. So Hugo basically so like we were talking about energy inefficiencies with Bitcoin. So yes, Bitcoin uses a lot of energy, but you're not getting a lot of use for that energy. So like, let's say the energy level stays the same, and people are moving Bitcoin over to Flare as FBTC, then what that can do is provide more like economic incentives and everything for Bitcoin. So even though the energy inefficiencies are still there, at least more value is being derived from that to help even that out a little bit and make it more worthwhile if we're going to use all this energy with Bitcoin. And, I don't want to be like a Bitcoin hater, but I in the long run, it does slightly worry me about how much energy it takes up with Bitcoin. Because, you see all these groups around the world, like the World Economic Forum, the IMF, all anybody ever talks about is sustainable energy and green energy and all that stuff. So it just seems to me like Bitcoin could be a target, especially since it consumes as much energy as some small European nations. It's just crazy. So that's one thing that I could see being a Bitcoin roadblock. Now, if enough money gets in there from the big players, then that could kind of fend that off and it may be fine, but we'll just have to see. So, yeah.
So we got Crypto Whale's question here. If they bring over ETH and wrap it, will ERC20's tokens work on Flare? Okay, so first, ETH, I highly doubt that's not going to be an F asset anytime soon. That I I could see, but then again, you never know.
I mean, they're putting
know.
ADA out there, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked at this point.
Yeah, but ETH doesn't need to be an F asset because it could be, locked on a smart contract there. They both use the Ethereum virtual machine. And, the fact that the ERC20s pretty much could just be wrapped and brought over, Flare Finance is doing that right now. So Flare Finance has Flare Wrap. That could bring over pretty much a good chunk of ERC20s if they want to. But projects could actually just port themselves over onto Flare as FLR20s instead of staying as ERC20s. So we might see some of that. Like on Binance, we've seen some movement from Ethereum to the Binance Smart Chain. So instead of just wrapping them, they're just going to actually just move the whole project over and just leave the Ethereum mainnet. And I think we'll see more and more of that. I mean, I know there's layer 2 scaling that helps with some use cases, but I think we'll see some actual projects just get up and move. I mean, and that can be done. Something like unstoppable domains would be, ideal. But now there's that new naming. What is the name of that one, Patty? The domain names. It's called Handshake.
Handshake.
So
yes.
Handshake is something that's a new one now too. So with domains, that's going to look to be big with the whole Web3. And there was one other question here.
And yeah, Mickey, can I touch on basically like the ability of projects to port over onto Flare? So like they don't have to abandon their project on Ethereum. So like, things like Uniswap and Yearn Finance, like they're making a brand name out there. Like they could just put their code base on Flare and offer the same thing, but with like all the benefits that come with Flare. They don't have to completely abandon the code that they have set up on Ethereum. So I think that's important. Like if they want to, be a full like solution across the globe on different blockchains, well, they can just move over their code there, but they don't have to like give up on what they're doing on Ethereum either. So I think that's like important. And that's like a nice, driver because they don't have to basically choose one or the other, because there is like, like it or not, there's a ton of value on Ethereum right now. And it's there, and it's like one of the first smart contract networks. So it had that first mover advantage, just like Bitcoin. So like they don't want to abandon that, but also like they're going to see the writing on the wall for the future that like Ethereum, unless it, ETH 2.0 comes out sometime soon and is ready to go and scales and everything, there's other options out there.
Yes. So Randy Robcats asks, is the IMF holding the escrow? So no, because we know that for a fact, because nobody holds the escrow. So the XRP that's escrowed is held by the XRP ledger. Hence, that's the whole technical thing that nobody holds it. A typical escrow, an entity has to hold it. Nobody holds the escrow. There's nobody. It's on the ledger. Nobody could take it. Nobody could confiscate it. There's nothing that can be done unless 80% of the validators literally voted to burn it in the UNL. And that's not likely to happen unless there was a really good reason for that. And it's released to a multi-sig wallet. And now that multi-sig wallet could go to another smart contract and then have other conditions on it. Just like Greg Kidd said that he has an option on 1%. So how does he have an option on it? So there's obviously conditions on conditions after it's released. And that's what the SEC can't see, we can't see, and no human should really be doing. In the future, it'll be more machines will just manage the liquidity and whatever programming. And this is where like you take seigniorage to the next level. So instead of just being a lender of last resort, which is great, you're a liquidity provider of first resort. And I think that's really how we should look at the escrow. It's a liquidity provider of first resort. Because you don't really need to backstop anything because you don't have a nation and a job market and a capital markets to support. But you do have liquidity and a token economy, which is a new type of economy to manage and build out and grow. So it's different types of economics. So when we hear like these BIS and central banks speak, they're speaking like from national, a different approach. Their responsible and mandate is for a, society and jobs and capital markets and stability. What is relevant for XRP is just the ledger. Now, there's no nation built on that. In 20 years, 10 years, that might change. But for right now, it's a liquidity provider. That's how I would look at the escrow. I don't look at it as monetary value. I mean, even though it could be. I don't know if you want to throw anything in there, Patty.
Well, it's funny that you're talking about that, but you want to ask something or?
No, I didn't. It would go too far in the other direction. I was going to touch on the SDR, but I'll touch on that one next, Crypto Schooner, because that's. Go ahead. Go what you're saying.
Yeah. So K-Spec 1515 goes plot twist. What if Ripple dedicates a portion of the escrow release to Flare and mints RE tokens? And they say, LOL. And honestly, we were talking about this the other day. Like,
more likely.
It's a possibility. I mean, like, there's a lot of things they can do with the escrow. They don't just need to like sell it to people. They
literally could mint dollars without the Federal Reserve, without having any effect on like the actual monetary policy of the dollar, where like Tether has an actual effect because it's pulling dollars out of the system and just then putting the dollars on the blockchain, where minting like something like RA, yes, it's pegged to $1, but you're not affecting anything to do with actual dollars. You're creating a synthetic dollar in a way, but it actually has value that's collateral. So you're basically creating commodity money again. So these protocols like XRP Ledger has value. It's going to be like, that's the value, is the ledger. Now you take that value and you back $1 with it and you create a stable coin. Now the way that Probity is doing it, they are creating an interest rate system. So maybe we could get into that, Patty, a little bit before we wrap it up, because that's something that in the test net's going to be coming. So I'm really personally excited about Probity, because I think that project is going to be like massively successful. And that's kind of where David Schwartz's evolution of the stablecoin is going to end up. And now it has an Oracle system that can manage the collateral. So to do what they're doing, you need to have a way to manage that collateral to the USD price. So all those assets that go in there as collateral, you have to have that. And then there's some other components that we could get into, but I do want to mention the SDR thing. So the SDR, what does David Schwartz think? David Schwartz thinks that's a pipe dream, and he says it's totally not worth it when it comes to cross-border payments, and it's useless. And I think so too. At this point, in this stage, how we have atomic swaps and liquidity pools and automated market makers and money could be transferred like data. Why do we need a new global currency to be used in place? That was only when it took so long to transfer value across the payment rails. But I do think that we need a new unit of account and a reference point. So I think that the SDR could kind of evolve into something like a carbon credit, and maybe something that you take all the commodities prices and something with machine learning or AI that could come up with some kind of reference point that things could be priced against, but we could separate the functions of money. I mean, that's kind of what the SDR did, but it just failed epically because they kept it out of the capital markets and nobody could use it. Now, I mean, how would you even introduce something like that?
Yeah, I don't know why they would go to that. It is funny that you bring that up because I did see that the U.S. is sending over $650 billion to the IMF. I have no idea what that's for. It could be just random stuff, but yeah.
Sovereign debt, don't they bail countries out? I mean, they do use it. We're not going to say they don't use it.
But yeah, for sure.
The use case for cross borders and to create a global currency, I think, is long gone. I just think we're past that stage now, but they might find another way. Like, I do think if the dollar is going to collapse and they keep going on this, what replaces that unit of account? Like, what do we measure everything against? Is it just that things are just more expensive? You know, does it just inflate? Or do we replace that somehow or reset it?
Yeah, I'm curious if they will, like, eventually, like, name something new, or if we'll see, like, multiple ones come up. Who knows? Yeah.
I mean, what if they like fork the dollar? I mean, that's kind of like what bail-in means. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, because I feel like the U.S. is going to find a way to always want to keep it as the reference, but they'll give in something else to, realize they're just not going to let it taken over by the digital Riembe or something like that.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's why XRP is so, primed for this. Is I don't see the U.S. and China sitting down, along with whatever other countries are involved and being like, oh yeah, the Chinese CBDC is now the new reference point, or the new U.S. digital dollars. Like that, I just don't see that happening. I don't think we're going to get to that point anytime soon. Let alone probably in my lifetime. And I'm pretty young, so that's a while. But like, yeah, I mean, XRP, like, I don't know if we need to like name something as a new reserve currency. Like, it could just be de facto that most people are using XRP as like a neutral reference point. So it could just in general be like that, or it could be one option. But I mean, we already see countries are going away from trying to trade stuff in the dollar. Like, the countries that produce oil are starting to try and trade with like the Chinese currency and all that stuff. So like it's gonna wane on its own whether they like sit down and have a Bretton Woods moment where they're like, oh hey, this is the new reserve currency. I feel like we could get into a world where like we don't have to do something that we did in the 1940s again.
No,
like,
I agree.
There's new technologies, like it's not. I don't think it's as needed.
How do they call in all the reserves that are held though? Like that's the one thing that the IMF kind of has the ability to do, is like you have all these other countries holding foreign reserves. Like if you want to change that model up, and if you don't need to hold those reserves anymore, and you could keep your money in your country, and we could have instant settlement, and there's no more of this account-based system, what happens to those reserves during a transition to a CBDC? So this is why I think the CBDC transition, we might hear, oh, the Bahamas did it, this did it, but this is going to be an ongoing decade-long process, and at least the next few years of testing for them to really, really introduce something. And I think they'll start with, it'll be baby steps, and it will be testing and testing, because they're going to realize that as they test, there's going to be these smart contracts they could do, and then they could do this, and then there's going to be certain privacy they're going to need. Because right now they're still in that mode where they want to keep everything the same, and as time goes by, the innovation is just going to keep picking up, and more money is going to leave the system. So I don't know I don't think anything's set. I think there's kind of like they know they have to transition, and they're obviously piloting right now. But then you got people like Augustin Carlson still like defending the central banks, like, well, they don't have the ability to have, backstop it like this. And I'm like, you keep, saying that, but it's only going to take a time before more value flows in. Look, we got $2 trillion market right now. I mean, that's starting to gain attention, and it's only going to get bigger and bigger. And the U.S. has delayed it as much as they have. So what happens when XRP, they're not even part of this $2 trillion right now. So, I mean, XRP basically didn't participate. So what if it was at $5? We'd be at like $2.5 trillion. I mean.
Yeah. And you know how they're going to eventually, when they get like this digital dollar figured out, like the way that I see that getting implemented is they're going to keep pushing more and more stimulus over time. And it's going to get to UBI at some point. I mean, I think we can see that by the end of the year for at least some of the US. It's going to be, if they want people to adopt it, they're going to have to incentivize them. Like in China with their CBDC, they're basically having like testing grounds where they're airdropping people the Chinese CBDC, so they start using it and want to use it in the future. So, I mean, it's kind of similar to how Sparks airdrop, or Flare's airdrop Spark. So like, give it to people, let them use it, let them see that it's better, in whatever ways it is. But I just see that like stimulus and UBI is a perfect way for them to give them out, because people are like, oh, hey, free money from the government. So
that would be, then you could say, hey, if you want it, then you got to get this digital wallet.
You got to move over, Yeah,
and you could convert the post offices into, if somebody didn't have the digital wallet, well, they could go to their post office then. If they really, I mean, there's not many people that don't have phones in the U.S., but there are enough to the point where you need to have something there for that. But, it was only 10 years ago, I think it was like 2008, or so. They stopped doing actual checks they were mailing out, and they did debit cards. But now that transition. So you see these. Next is going to be credit cards. So that's the other thing with trustline that I wanted to bring up is that's an untapped market where DeFi hasn't even been able to go near that yet, where these credit card companies are making, a big percentage on their users and on the merchant side. So if you could offer credit to consumers, which will take their real identities then. So Trustline is going to have the fiat gateway, and that's going to be like the Coinbase. It'll have the same abilities of Coinbase, but to be able to get right onto DeFi. So Coinbase's business model, not financial advice, but I don't know. It seems very overvalued for what is coming up against them and what advantage they really have. I don't think it's going to be that much of an advantage, especially with all the financial institutions coming in who could just partner with these mobile apps. Everything's going to go to mobile and Web3 browsers. Even the bank apps they're gonna have to. So yeah. It's going to be
just going to plug into layer one, basically. I mean, that's the best way. And we have all these DEXs popping up and Uniswap's gaining more traction every day. So, I agree with you. I mean, I think the Coinbase stock will probably go up just by virtue of everything in the stock market going up right now. But I mean, I'm not looking to get into that particularly unless maybe we hear more about like what their plans are for the future. But right now, if like their plan is just to be a centralized exchange, like in the long run, I think stuff's going to move away from that. I think everything's moving to on chain and basically having these like browser extensions that you can plug into, like you're saying with the mobile apps and everything.
Moneybags, I think you're absolutely right. I think that would be their first step. With where is it? What he said here. This is, I think, an ideal.
Fed may open you a digital account and fund it with basic income.
Yeah, they might start with like an account-based digital just to get. They need to, get the public on board. They just can't just flip a digital dollar, especially in the U.S. after they've been bashing crypto. So they need to ease everybody in. So they'll do an account-based digital dollar. Like they'll do it slow, and they'll try and figure out a way. I feel like they're gonna add a way to hold off inflation, because if they speed up the money, this is going to be really interesting times in the next couple of years now, because you have this outflow into crypto and you have this UBI, or they can't do anything with the interest rate. It's kind of like, that's it. You're down at the bottom and you can't lift it, or else it would just crash the economy. So that would be a way, Bob Moneybags. I think that would, could they separate it though, Patty? Like in a way that it wouldn't affect inflation? Like, can they do that, or would it be just part of the?
Well, they could separate it into a new money supply.
Yeah.
And also one thing that I'm thinking they can do with this is like it's programmable money, so they could probably make it where it disappears if you don't spend it quick enough, or you don't spend it in a certain way. Which I mean, like I don't like the sound of any of that. But that's for the people that get that to the side. Yeah. Which I mean, right now, I think people are either saving their stimulus money or putting it into stocks and crypto. I think that's, for the most part, what's happening.
A couple more questions here. So Danny Matos asked, this is a good one. I get this one a lot, but it needs to be answered. Do we know what role the Zum wallet will have once Flare goes live? I know that Vite Win said that they're not going to have a Flare. They're going to be on the XRP ledger. So there's going to be a lot of overlap and interoperability on the between the XRP ledger and Flare. Like I would expect, I don't want to speculate too much, but the Zum I know is not going to be on Flare. He said as of right now, that's all we know. So you'll have to point it to a Flare wallet. It's going to be interesting to see how they really do all that, because we have to be at the forefront. They can't. The fact that they're silent about the whole thing makes it more suspicious that something next generation would be coming to add to this, because it's going to have to be like better than MetaMask and all that. So you're going to have to, basically they want to get rid of it so you don't have to be able to expose your private key every time and pass wordless. Like that's what the idea would be. Like what Tangent's doing with, you have one hardware side with your identity, either that's a nano ledger, either that's Decent, or it's a Tangent card, and then you have a pay string which is attached to your Spark and your XRP address, and you might be able to just use that with Zum and attach to it. Because Zum is really more of an app. I think they say that. They say the Zum app. So they're not using the word wallet really anymore. So just I just think they're going to head in that direction. Here's another good one, Patty, if you want to take this. I stake my XRP to create FXRP. Does my XRP leave my wallet? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like in that process, you can't post your own collateral, so somebody else will do that for you, and that's the agent. So whenever you mint an F asset, you have to send the native assets over to that agent. But basically with what we were talking about earlier, you're able to redeem that whenever you want. So like you could mint it and then go back and redeem in the same day if you wanted to. And they're heavily incentivized to make sure that they need to return that. And if you guys want, so like we have a bunch of information at our website, the DeFiStandard.com. There's an F assets page where, and I just threw it in the chat, the website link, but basically we have an F asset page with diagrams on how to mint, how to redeem, and then also a scenario where the agent defaults and what the outcome is for you as an originator who minted an F asset, as well as what happens to the agent. And the haircut's pretty big on them. They lose about 40% of their value on an average. So it's not a good scenario for them to default. And that's why we kind of think it's going to be like more sophisticated, like financial firms that are providing this, or, you know, people that are like doing it as a full-time job and everything. It's not going to be just like your lay person.
And I would think agents would also be exchanges.
I wouldn't be shocked. BitTrue maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they're already going to be a signal provider, so it wouldn't shock me.
And I wonder if CeFi, like that mix being there. I mean, it's all coming together at, you know, some point here. The custodians, like your Anchorages, like crypto banks, and, you know, those type of entities, because they're not like decentralized. So how are you going to enter with a business model into crypto right now? An agent is a pretty good, you know, it's pretty attractive. And I think that's one thing Flare thought out when they built the network was like, well, what role and stakeholders are they going to be in the network? Instead of just focusing on the community, they kind of like, that is a role that would be perfect to play, because most people just wrap their tokens. And you're like, now wait, you know, if you have the data access to be able to manage this could be kind of a new business model for you with everything else. And this is the composability that goes on here now. As one thing gets built, it works with the other. But the infrastructure layer with Flare is just so well designed that it's really going to be attractive.
Yeah, I mean, if I was a programmer and good at it, I would be trying to become an agent right now. But I don't know how to do that. So
yeah, well, I wonder how they got so many exchanges on at the end, and they all just, you know, jumped on board. It was like, what's going on here? You know, that
is very true. I still don't know why for sure yet.
And you knew some of those exchanges, like Coinbase, had to know that there was the SEC thing going on with XRP. Like they had to have the insights with their attorneys and certain things, you know. And they still just didn't care. They were just like, okay, we got to do it. And it was like the you know, the rush at the end there was like they were all, one jumped in and they all went in. It was like, okay, you're gonna do it. Okay, we're gonna do it. Binance, Coinbase, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, for the longest time, we were like, oh, Coinbase is definitely not going to get involved. And I think even like Hugo was even down on them. Yeah. And then something spurred them to do it. You know, I don't know. Maybe they're worried about XRP leaving Coinbase and everything. So that could be one reason.
But partners, I had a feeling. You know,
there's a lot of partners that people don't know about yet. So that's one thing that we'll hear more of in the coming months.
And we don't know what Flare Limited's role is going to be. They're going to have a business model, and
they'll definitely be agents for sure.
And there is institutional, like the Singularity that we found, the financial, that's, you know, the head of business development at Flare. He's the CEO of. Hugo is the advisor. The other guy, I forgot his name, Norfolk, I know his last name was. He's in both projects. So that's supply chain Africa. Then you got Securitize. That's security tokens. What else is going on behind the scenes? I mean, I'm sure over time there's been more, interest from institutions and corporate since Flare's been announced. But I think there were certain projects that were already planned prior to Flare going live, and the network was kind of built around certain use cases that seem ideal. So I do want to finish on this question though before we go. This is a good one. I can go back to it. Where is it? I lost it. Sorry, guys. Hold on. This was going. Here it is. Nope. All right, I'll just grab this one because I think I lost it. Will institutions be allowed to mint F assets? Will they be able to receive the daily Flare rewards? How would that affect the price of token? Yeah, I don't see why they can't. It's just like buying Bitcoin. It's not like they allow them or not. I mean, I don't see what would stop them. It's decentralized, so there's like nobody to trust. So that would be an interesting scenario. I mean,
there's institutions that have XRP out there. So like they're getting the Spark airdrop. They're going to be participants, and there's going to be people that own millions and tens of millions and hundreds of millions of Spark, but like people also have that with XRP already. And we know like that initially Spark is going to have the same total amount as XRP. So I think it's good. Like if we want institutions involved with Spark in the long run, because they're going to bring a lot of value onto the network.
Well, can you choose your agent? Like, would there be a way that if they could choose their agent? I mean,
well, some really agents are probably only going to mint like FLTC or FXRP. Like I don't think all of them will be doing every single F asset. So I think there'll be like a way to at least, you're going to have a way to choose the agent that you want to put your collateral with, but you're not going to be choosing your agents that are going to be posting the collateral for your F assets, because we already know that multiple agents are going to be posting collateral on the same F asset position. So like you're not going to choose as the originator, but as someone that's going to give allocate your Spark to be used in collateral, you definitely would be able to choose the agent, because you're going to have to send your Spark to somebody.
What do you mean your XRP?
Huh?
Oh, you meant on the other side. Oh.
Yeah, on the other side. Yeah, that's where you would choose your agent. Yeah.
Okay, but don't you have to send a small amount before your FXRP is minted? Isn't there like a one step?
Yeah, it's called a reservation fee. So like that's just basically you send that to the collateral system. Not to like a specific agent, but that would feed out to them from the collateral system.
They'll probably automate that and put it behind.
You're not going to be like, you're just going to send it in to where they tell you to.
Do you think XRP is going to slowly go up, or do you think a crazy jump to like 150, then slowly go up? David said if the price goes up slowly, it won't work. I don't know about 150. Yeah, but
step ladder.
Step ladder. I still see
on smaller increments.
I don't think slow and steady, but I do think that we could see like a speculative pump. So they're not going to ramp up like the ODL thing. It's just like boom, or I don't believe that, at least. I think they'll do corridor by corridor. But as you have speculation now, we have new use cases. The thing that we always assumed was like it's just ODL. And now it's like, okay, well, we got things like Flare. All the FXRP that's minted and brought onto the Flare network is for the most part removed from secondary exchanges now. So it's out of play in a way. It's on the network. So the more activity, that's the utility that will drive the price. So it's not just ODL, it's that, and also the institutions coming in and just creating products for their customers. So new use cases in DeFi for locking up FXRP would drive more of that, more use cases on the ledger, and things like that. But I don't think we're going to see 150. I would say, though, 10 to, I don't really do the prices, but I would say I think 10 to 15 on an SEC clarity on XRP over a week-long period is possible.
I don't know bullish.
I think if they literally gave XRP clarity in that way, I just think it's going to explode. Unless
Yeah,
they,
I would say all-time high.
come
At
on,
least.
I mean,
I would say all-time high for sure. I mean, I
it,
wouldn't. I'm not saying what you're saying won't
unless
happen.
there was a
I just have,
way,
yeah,
yeah, but unless there's a way that they could say, oh, well, we had to make an exact determination. If it's clear as day and it's legal law, like it's the legal, not a security. I mean, that's like the best news ever. It doesn't get better than that. I mean, that would be the bullish thing, unless Ripple still being in the case would be negative. I mean, I don't know. I think it could really go up because then anyone would feel comfortable using it. It'd be like, okay, it's like, well, I could use Bitcoin, but now we got this Ethereum thing. It's got the high gas fees, but it's like, oh, we got XRP. Then how does Spark get treated? It will be like kind of like if XRP's cleared, Spark's going to be cleared in a way, right?
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I would think of it like that.
Well, yeah, and I mean, Spark's cleared based on the way that they're distributing the Spark. So I think like it's pretty safe. Like they're airdropping it. There's no like initial coin offering or anything of that nature. They're not selling the Spark to everybody. Like in a similar way that like other cryptos have done or Ripple has with XRP. And I know Hugo's like commented that they've gotten extensive legal guidance like on doing it the best way and everything to avoid that. So, yeah, I mean, we're like 95 minutes in. Do you want to wrap up?
No,
Or is there
wow,
anything
we
else
really
you
are.
want to hit?
There was
Yeah.
that one question. I can't find it.
I will say, so I saw Neuro was saying, he was asking about rug pulls, and I just want to point out that Flare is going to go through extensive security auditing. So you'll have like that information and everything. And like, that's going to be one of the things I look for before I use any kind of new like DeFi products or dApps on the Flare network. I'm going to want to see security audits because a lot of the rug pulls I've heard of on the other networks come from like basically these shadow projects that people don't know much about, and they haven't undergone extensive auditing and everything. So yeah, sometimes if the yield sounds too good to be true, maybe it is, but also not in every case. So I would just keep an eye on that. Hopefully with like the governance voting, people like the community will be able to weed that out before, that even comes to a head. So.
Yeah, K-Spec, I'm not going to go too deep into that, but I don't know. That's, I don't want to go into that one right now, but that's an interesting question he asked K-Spec. I don't want to go into that, but I don't think not with that project. It's not big enough yet, but I think that project, what they're doing is going to evolve to a point where it could become that way. It's just like everything, it's going to start out, and if it gains adoption and if it's built on the right infrastructure, it has the potential to gain that type of attraction because it could do things and collateral and earn certain types of yield and also create new types of dollars and connect into a payment network that's global. So it has this high potential what Trustline's doing. And we don't know any details about Probity Vault. They released some about the RA stablecoin, and it's kind of based on interest rates. But the Fed, it would take pressure off the Fed. I mean, the question is the central bank even would they even like think about something like that? I don't think.
I'm hoping they don't go that route. I don't want to see that.
No,
yeah.
I
think it's better if there's a lot of options in the future.
Yeah, I think we need more than. It's going to be whole interesting how the dollar is the dollar, and they want to say, well, it's just the CBDC. I mean, I think by the time they get around to actually issuing it, it's just like these banks now have kind of the OCC saying, hey, you're good to go. That's kind of also jump-started, this clarity. When we get Congress to say, okay, that's when we'll see another wave. So I don't believe in this whole anyone saying 2-year bear market coming. I think that whole crap. I don't care what TA says. This is a completely different market now at $2 trillion. Completely different. It's genie's out of the bottle. Corporate's coming in, and there's actual reason to be built on it. Like there's products and there's use cases, and they're solving problems. So.
Yeah, I mean, TA is all good and stuff until it takes a giant leap and the market's starting to mature. So, yeah. And plus, like, once, like, we see real utility happen, like, it's going to completely change how all that works. So, yeah, it's good until it doesn't work. I mean, the problem with basing everything off history is you're all fine and dandy until something comes in and wallops you that you never thought of because you're only basing stuff on things that happened in the past. That's that whole like idea of black swans. But do you want to wrap it up here?
Yeah, we're back. Sorry, we had a little issue there. Yeah, I think we're gonna wrap it up. This is a long one. Jeez, set a record here. This is long. And then have Lars telling me, "Hey, it's been an hour." We missed Lars on this one.
I know.
But this was a good show. It's always good having different conversations with different people. You know, we talk about different things, and you guys, the questions were great in the chat.
Yeah.
So thank you, everyone. You know, I could see like over the past few months, the community in general, we're starting to become more educated on Flare, like understanding it, and people are spreading the word, and that's good. But we really need to attach with other communities like Doge, Litecoin, the Stellar, like the tribalism thing. Hopefully when XRP gets clarity, that will end and there won't be the stigma with XRP. I don't get it, but it's going to end obviously when there's clarity. So nobody could say that like, oh, it's just Ripple, you know, it just proved their point almost with this case. So it's a short-term thing. So just be open, everyone in the community, to everyone else. They say anything, you know, don't be a maximalist. Bitcoin's not going to die, and it has a use case. And, you know, on Flare, I really think it does. I mean,
yeah, Flare will help it for sure. Yeah. I mean, Flare definitely.
It's going to be all the same asset on Flare. So it's like, they're all F assets. They all do the same thing in the same way, you know. But there's competition. I mean, it's not like Flare's the only thing here.
Oh, no, and it's not going to be the only thing.
Network. Yeah. There's all these other things trying to wrap Bitcoin too. But it's like, what's going to drive the demand? Why are we going to go to that network? Well, you're going to pay me to go there? Okay, I'll go there. You know, do I have to trust anybody? No. Okay. Those are the two questions that are usually asked. You know, what's the risk and what do I get out of it? So I think Flare answered those pretty well in their design. All right.
Yeah, well, good stream. Thanks, everybody. Yeah. Happy Easter to anybody that's celebrating that this weekend as well. Yeah.
And, thank you, Dale and Cynthia, for the graphics today with Cynthia.
Yeah, I love this
one. And Dale for the thumbnails. You're doing a great job.
Yeah.